name is Michael Dorn, and I'm so glad to see you all here today. We have a lot of different acts and speakers today. We're going to start with our keynote speaker. She's coming all the way from California for us today. She's the author of the book Too Thin, and she also works as a dance instructor and as a therapist for eating disorders. Her name is Dawn Smith Theodore, and we're very pleased to have her here with us today. So I want to give a big hand for Dawn Smith.
Hi everybody, thank you for having me here. I'm happy to be here for Project Maria and here in Milton, Wisconsin. My name is Dawn Smith Theodore, and I decided that I had met Shauna at the NIDA conference in October, and she asked if I would come, and I was thrilled to be here. So I want to talk a little bit about I'm from Los Angeles, but I grew up in Ohio, and I would say that I'm a dancer. I've been a dance teacher. I'm an author. I'm a therapist. I was a flight attendant for United Airlines for many years. I'm a daughter. I'm a wife. But most importantly, I'm recovered from an eating disorder. I developed anorexia nervosa when I was 15. At a time in the world when really nobody even knew what it was. I was sick in the 70s, and so, and I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I grew up in Ohio, and my mom took me to actually the doctor who had delivered me, the gynecologist, and because I'd stopped having my period, and he basically said I needed to be hit over the head with a baseball bat and knock some sense into me. And so that was his idea of how to treat me. So there really was no treatment at the time that I was sick. We went on a family vacation, and I lost a few pounds because we were out of the country, and it just never stopped. So I lost 5 pounds. 5 pounds turned into 10 pounds, and before you knew it, I had lost 25 pounds and was really sick. So, and that's kind of how eating disorders develop. You know, there's many things that go into developing an eating disorder. I call it the perfect storm. Dancing was my passion. I grew up in a dancing school. Literally, my parents, when I was 8 years old, my mom had a dancing school, and we built a dancing school on the first floor, and we lived up above. And so I spent every day dancing, and so I spent all my time in front of the mirror, but I don't think that every person who's a dancer develops an eating disorder. But there are many other things that go into the development of an eating disorder. You know, as I said, it's the perfect storm, and you know, it can be, you know, family problems, it can be some kind of trauma. It usually is a diet gone bad at the very end. It's the genetic predisposition, personality trait, perfectionistic, mood disorders, anxiety, depression, so many different things, and puberty is another one. Somebody's body starts to change, and it's really difficult for them. But the genetic pieces, we call it the loaded gun, and all the other factors are just like pulling the trigger. So, you know, I developed this eating disorder, and consequently, because there was not treatment, it took me a lot longer to get better. One of the things that I do, you know, media plays a huge part, I think, in eating disorders today. You see pictures of models and celebrities who, you know, are stick thin, and that's what people measure themselves against. When I was growing up, the person my mom took me to see, I modeled as a young girl, and my mom took me to see Twiggy model when I was about 10 in Cincinnati, in my hometown. And I just was, you know, very enthralled by her, and remember that she weighed a certain weight. I don't like to talk about numbers because we don't talk about numbers. I don't talk about numbers with my clients. But she weighed a certain weight, and when I was 15, I remembered, well, I don't weigh that, so I must be fat. And so, you know, that's the thing that plays into people is, I mean, she's not the reason I got an eating disorder, but there was a multitude of reasons. And so, but, you know, the thing is that I get up every day and I'm grateful that I had my eating disorder because I'm recovered and I have such a better life today. And it took a little bit longer, but I feel very fortunate. And so I think my eating disorder, I certainly wouldn't have the profession that I have today where I get to work with young women and young men every day who are suffering with an eating disorder. And I believe that I hold the light for them, you know, through the dark tunnel of an eating disorder. You know, eating disorders come in all shapes and sizes. You know, anorexia is certainly one that you see and can visibly see, but I talk about bulimia being the silent killer because many times people are of a normal size and you know, you just don't know that they're binging and purging, and then binge eating disorder is also more recognizable. But I think the thing about it is that recognizing that eating disorders, it's not just that simple to say, just eat your food. Because sitting down with a plate of food when you have anorexia nervosa is like sitting in front of a plate of snakes for somebody who's afraid of snakes. Because somewhere along the line, there was a misfire in what food is for. I always tell my clients, food is your fuel, and it's like you're stopping at the gas station to fuel up your car. But somewhere along the lines, for any eating disorder, people learn to use food as a way of dealing with their emotions instead of just being fuel for their body. And so, you know, the part of healing somebody from an eating disorder is really one of the reasons that I think people turn to food is because food is consistent. If you go to McDonald's, you get the same hamburger each time. If you go to, you know, some other restaurant, you always know what something's going to look like and what it's going to taste like. And that's not the same with relationships. And so, you know, an eating disorder is an unhealthy relationship with self, but also, you know, there's a issue with relationships with the people with eating disorders. Eating disorder clients withdraw, they become very isolative, and so one of the things I always say is that people, if their relationships get better, their food gets better, or if their food gets better, their relationships get better. And so part of it is learning to trust yourself, trust that your body knows what to do with the food, and trust and trust other people. And you know, the other part is that eating disorders are definitely disorders of communication because people have to learn how to communicate their needs. And many times it's done through their eating disorder, and by not eating, it's saying something. It's a message from the soul. And you know, the truth is that we need to know what the needs are of that person. And so, as a therapist, that's what my work is. You know, when I was dancing professionally, I was kind of at the end of my eating disorder and doing better. But when I decided to open a dance studio, which, by the way, I grew up in a dance studio. I used to tell my mom I will never own a dance studio, but I did. And you know, it's because the kids knew that what I did for a living. I had probably 3 people in my studio in the 25 years that I owned it that developed an eating disorder, but I was able to catch it. So, you know, I wrote my book, Too Thin, because there was not a book out there about dancers and eating disorders. And, you know, it doesn't really, you know, it's about dancers, but the truth is that any sport or activity that focuses on aesthetics, people have the possibility of developing an eating disorder. Swimming, running, gymnastics, ice skating, dance, wrestling, race car driver. I actually treated once a teenage boy who was a race car driver who got weighed before he got in the race car. And so it's not, once again, it's not it's not what causes the eating disorder, but it's one of the many parts that has to be worked on. And so for me, it was about wanting to be able to dance again and be able to pursue my dreams. And so I wanted to be able to do that so I would eat, so that I could. So I tell people, my dancing actually definitely played a role in my eating disorder, but it also played a role in my recovery and me being recovered today. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today were, I've been treating eating disorders for about 18 years, and I was very fortunate to be able to work for a person who started the first actual residential treatment program for women in California. She had a 6-bed facility called Montanito, and I actually live a block from there now, and it means mountain nest. But Carolyn Costin, also recovered from anorexia nervosa, had worked in many hospital settings and believed that, she wanted to provide a home setting where the therapist ate with the clients and where it was like a home. And so she started Montanito in 1997, and so it's been 20 years. And I had the pleasure of working for her for 17. So I started as a therapist at the residential treatment center. And it was actually the final part of my healing. Not that I feel like I was recovered before that, but I had never, because I had never been to treatment, I had never had the opportunity to sit with other people who had eating disorders. And so, people would say things in group and I'd be like, oh, I used to think that, or, oh, I used to do that. And so it was really the final step for me in my healing process, I believe, to be able to sit with women at that time who were in the process of trying to recover from their eating disorders. So I worked there for 7 years, and then I went on to be the clinical director of the day treatment program and the intensive outpatient program, and now I just have a private practice in Los Angeles in 2 different locations. But those are the I feel like I've gotten to work in all levels of care except for the hospitalization, which is, acute, when somebody's really, really needs to be hospitalized to be stabilized. They go to acute, and then they usually step down to residential, and then to partial hospitalization, to IOP, and then out to outpatient. And, as a treatment professional, we work with psychiatrists and dietitians and doctors to make sure that as a team, we really hold each patient, client, I call them clients, doctors call them patients, but I like to not follow the medical model. So, but to try to work as a team to give each person the possibility of getting better. And so, I hold the lantern for each person. And so I have had the opportunity to see many people get better and know that besides myself, I've watched people and how they take that energy, because in my eating disorder, I was driven and I was determined and I was perfectionistic and, I didn't eat past a certain time and I had all these rules and rituals that I followed, because that's what the eating disorder told me to do. And so many times in the treatment of eating disorders, we talk about that unhealthy voice in the head and how you have to fight it with the other with the healthy side. And, when people would come into treatment, I'd say, they're 95% eating disorder, but 5% of them wants to get better, they wouldn't be here. And so I always say that it's like going to the gym. You start using a new muscle that you've never used before called the healthy self, and you start to build that and start to fight against the eating disorder and start to take the parts of the eating disorder that you want to keep and channel them into the healthy part of you. So what I say, am I determined? Yes. Am I driven? Yes. Am I perfectionistic? Yes. My husband would tell you that I drive him crazy. As he sits in the audience, he's probably laughing to himself. But the truth is that all of those things I've taken to channel into being healthy and doing the things that I wanted to do with my life, which is what I teach and hope that I give to each person that I come across that has an eating disorder. I want them to know that it's possible to recover, that they have that they have to take and channel that energy, and so that they can get better. And you know, some of the people that I just actually got, I thought this was when I was writing what I was going to talk about. I had gotten an email yesterday from a client who I saw in treatment twice at Montanito, and she was in medical school actually here in Wisconsin, and had to drop out or had to take a leave of absence from medical school, and then she went back, and then she got her eating disorder came back, and so she had to come back, and she's now a psychiatrist, works with eating disorders, and is, you know, sent a picture of her baby that she's married and has a baby. So, you know, there are so many of those stories of people who, you know, have taken their eating disorder and channeled it in the direction of getting better. And so, you know, I know that, you know, Project Maria is such a special event. The first time I've been here, but when I met Shauna, it's such a special event in honor of Maria, and so that it brings the light to those who are suffering, and so that we can help people and catch eating disorders, educate individuals so that people can get better from their eating disorder. I wrote that recovery means being honest about the way what I want, what I need, and what I feel, and who I am. Because if people can communicate that, then they can get better. And so it is about, you know, I tell clients, it's like with the eating disorder, it's ruled by the brain. It's like having a dictator in your head that barks orders at you all the time. You can't eat this, that's too many calories. You need to exercise, you should have done this, why didn't you do that? And so it's about taking, and we've lost touch with the soul part, our heart. And so I always tell clients the elevator isn't working between this floor and this floor. And so we connect the elevator so that you know, we're born with hunger signals. Babies cry. So we're born with those innate feelings. And so we have to connect to the feelings that we feel, and not only about hunger and fullness, but about how we feel, and be able to talk about how we feel, and know that it's not shameful to talk about how you're feeling. So I really appreciate the ability to be here, and to be here in honor of Maria and Project Maria. And I want to open it up for any questions that any of you might have in the audience. About eating disorders, about anything that you'd like to ask me, I would be happy to answer any questions. Anybody? Yes?
So at the outset, you mentioned for having your family doctor, probably didn't know what to say. There was no research, no definition of how to handle this. And the fact that modern culture, trying to put yourself as a positive standard, that's more prevalent now with social media, but also social media can be positive as far as a community aspect, togetherness, you're not alone. So I guess, how have you seen the changes over the past decade or two from being dispersed and being pushed aside and not really dealt with, and that community aspect, events like this, bring people together and work through the issues, but also have a positive impact?
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, community is what helps people get better. And so, you know, on social media, there's all the pro-Anna websites and all of those things, but there's also a lot of community that goes on between eating disorder clients, whether it be from a treatment center or groups online, and I think that it can be helpful. It's just like, it's just how you use it. And so, but, yes, it's changed tremendously because the person doesn't have to be isolated. I didn't thought I was the only person in the world who had an eating disorder, so absolutely. It's much more prevalent now, but, it's so much better when people have that community. Anybody else?
You said that when you had the disorder that you had rules that you followed. Do you have rules now that you recovered?
That I follow now? No. Not to do with food. I mean, I don't have really any rules I follow. I follow, driving rules, but no, not any rules that I follow. But I had very specific rules that I followed about when I had my eating disorder, and that is really, I can't explain it to people enough, except that when I have parents come to like a family group, I will have them sit in between two eating disorder clients, and I ask them something that they're afraid of or worried about, and I have one person sit on this side of them talking to them about, you should do this, and why didn't you do that, and the other person barking in the other ear so that they hear, because it's like a war going on in your head, because there's all these rules that you have to follow, but there's a part of you that doesn't want to, it's like, so. Other questions?
So what should you do with either a parent or a friend if you suspect someone has?
I always tell people to be empathetic and curious. I always tell this to families, but because eating disorder, people have a lot of shame about their eating disorders, and so, saying things to someone like, I've noticed that, you seem to not spend as much time, with your friends lately. Is something going on? Not asking them about their food specific, or, I've noticed that, you seem a little down. Is everything okay? I think just asking questions and being curious, but having the empathetic part of it goes a long way. Yeah.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, what can teachers do? I've had students who have been struggling or returned from maybe medical treatment, and what can we do as far as, their peers have questions, or even depending on the curriculum of your class, if it's a science class that might touch into something like that, or a health class, or an English class, and there's certain literature that we worry could trigger something or be difficult. What can teachers do?
I actually would ask the student, because in private, but I would ask the student because if they've come from treatment, it's like they're used to talking about things, but being respectful of like, I don't know if you want to talk in front of your peers, what would be problematic for us to talk about in here, what would be okay. I would really ask them, because coming from treatment, they're going to have really good guidelines of what they can and can't talk about, and what they're willing to and not willing to. But the thing is that the more open people are about their eating disorders, the less chance that they're going to relapse. So, and as a teacher, I think you have lots of opportunity to have that relationship with the student, and it might really make the difference.
I know when my daughter was really sick, I talked frequently with several of her teachers and kind of strategized and worked together.
Yeah, it takes a village. It takes a village to help someone heal from an eating disorder, and so they need as much support as possible. And empathy goes a long way. Right.
It's not really a question, but I guess I've seen progress right now. When I go on Instagram, I was like 11 or 12, there's so many pictures and diet that I would see. And you could look up the hashtag without it doing anything. But what I've noticed in the last few years
Absolutely, because, you know, it's what you were talking about, it's going in the right direction, and the more education, the NITA walks, everything is bringing the awareness about eating disorders without the stigma, you know, and that's really what we need. Other questions? Yes.
Are you a therapist, a psychiatrist?
I'm a therapist.
Okay, and then what exactly do you go to school for? Like, what's your major, I guess?
Well, I went to undergraduate school at Miami of Ohio and majored in psychology and social work. I clearly was in my eating disorder at the time because I graduated at the age of 20 with 2 majors and then was not sure what I wanted to do. I have really kind of always picked careers that, you know, flight attendant, when I started as a flight attendant, they used to weigh us, you know, so, and that was really hard for me because I was not recovered at the time, and, you know, it was very hard, dancing, and, you know, so I've always picked these careers that have the weight attached to it, but yeah, and then I went back to school and got my master's in clinical psychology. In California, we call them marriage family therapist. Other questions? No? That's okay.
You mentioned Nita Walk. There's going to be a Nita Walk in Madison on September 16th.
Okay, you guys all go. September 16th. NITA walks are great because they bring in speakers and they give information about eating disorders, and it just brings awareness for the day. And many times, I mean, in Los Angeles, I know lots of people who are suffering from eating disorders come out because it's a way to honor what they're working through. So we'll support them. Anything else? I know you're on a time schedule here, so any other questions? Well, thank you very much for having me. I feel very honored to be here and honoring Project Maria, and I hope you have a very successful event. Thank you.
Yeah, on the subject of NITA Walks, September 16th, we do actually already have a Project Maria team registered for the NITA Walk, so if you go on the site, you can actually join the team. The password is RedHawk2016 because that's what Maria's year of graduation is. So, all right. Just to remind people as well that there will be events in here, but there's still a silent auction going on outside. There's still the blacksmith doing demonstrations outside as well. You don't have to stay for every single event, or you can stay and leave as you wish. There's also some food available out there for sale, as well as other items, so please feel free to drop in and drop out as necessary to the performances. Our next speaker coming up is a former Milton High School student and someone who's just going to be kind of telling her own story. Her name is Laura Woodrow.
Hello guys. As he said, my name is Laura and I am 19 years old. I am a student at Edgewood College, currently in Madison, and I am studying art education. I am an MHS alumni and was actually a classmate of our beloved Maria. I am here today to kind of share my journey through my mental health recovery. I am blessed to say that I have a loving and supportive home with a lovely mom, dad, and older brother. I have an absolutely amazing boyfriend and wonderful friends. I have always been very involved in my school and community, and I was an honor student in many school committees, varsity swimmer, lifeguard, photographer, babysitter, and a volunteer, and a lot more. It probably looked like I had the perfect life from the outside, but I was constantly struggling on the inside. I felt like I was on a constant roller coaster, and my mind was always racing. Finally, about a year and a half ago, I was officially diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder, particularly perfectionism, trichotillomania, which is hair pulling, generalized anxiety disorder, and depression. Looking back, I was always an anxious person. Even in elementary school, I was always worried about my grades and what other people thought of me. Some would call me an old soul because I was always that kid that went out of their way to help the new person or the outcast. I always wanted everyone to be happy because I never felt like I was. I entered IHS having come from a small parochial school and was very anxious about fitting in. I immediately made new friends, I was a varsity swimmer, and I made it to state by my freshman year. I was on the honor roll, and from the outside, I looked like I had a perfect life. But I never felt like I was quite good enough. I had visited my family doctor, and from there started a low dose of anti-anxiety meds, and later had started talking to a counselor. I continued to do everything like before and kept adding more and more jobs, because I felt like if I was occupied 24/7, my mind would not be able to race. It continually got worse, especially towards the end of my junior and senior year, with increased pressure to do well on the ACTs, applying for colleges and scholarships. During the second half of my senior year, I hit my rock bottom. I was having severe testing anxiety and multiple panic attacks a day. I was no longer enjoying the things that I once loved to do. I was dealing with a lack of motivation, self-confidence. I was engaging in negative self-talk, gaining irrational fears, and losing focus on my schoolwork. I lost connections with a lot of my closest friends. I had gained weight, and I had formed a bald spot on the top of my head from pulling my hair. I felt that others were constantly judging me, and I could no longer do anything right. I felt like I had a fear of failure and disappointment towards others. I would snowball in my thinking. For example, I had the fear of failing a test. The fear of me failing a test would lead for me to thinking that I would not get into college. I would be disappointing my parents, I would get kicked out of the house, and I would become homeless and die alone on the streets. Now something that seems very irrational at the time was very, very real for me. Once a star athlete who would swim miles upon days, I had a hard time walking up the staircase here at school. I came home from school one day, mid-senior year, and I told my mom that I had enough. Obviously, what we were doing was not working, sadly, and I needed more of an intervention. My counseling office suggested Rogers Memorial Hospital in Oconomowoc, which is about 40 minutes north of here. After an initial assessment and a short hospital stay, I had been placed into a partial hospitalization program and traveled up every morning with my mom and or dad to work in the program. My program is focused on CBT, known as cognitive behavioral therapy, and exposure therapy. CBT helped me understand how my thinking impacted my behaviors. One of the examples, my biggest fear was saying no to people. I didn't want to disappoint them. So one of my exposures was that I was expected to say no to people randomly and not have the opportunity to explain why. It may seem simple to some, but for me it was traumatizing. I had the fear that what if they had hated me now? In my exposures, I had to confront anxiety-provoking situations so I could have a take for them. For example, I would have had a really hard time driving at the time for long periods of time at dark or when I was really busy. So I would have to go and drive. But my fear was, what if I got in an accident and hurt someone? By doing this, my treatment team made me feel better. What if I was, some coping skills that were particularly effective for me throughout my stay were thought challenging, deep breathing, coloring puzzles, which are great, painting, and listening to music. I also really enjoy hula hooping now. Everyone is different and they may benefit from different coping skills. Some include running, dancing, reading, baking, movies, and even video games. They had me engage in behavioral activation daily because at the time I was at a depression where my mood was awful and even video games such as Wii Sports would actually boost my energy. I also needed to keep up with my daily schoolwork, and Milton High School here was wonderful and willing enough to help me succeed in all the ways I needed to possible, and I graduated on time on my 18th birthday. Although one can never be cured of their mental illness, I now have the skills and resources that I need to help me, and I am honestly a happier and healthier person. But one of the main things that I would like to speak of today is that no matter what, it's never going to be all rainbows and butterflies. I wish it was, but it's not. Some days I'm a complete mess. Some days I'm eating that tub of ice cream in the bathtub crying. It just happens. But I hope it'll happen for you that you have really great days. Was it the hardest thing that I've ever done? For sure. Was it worth it? Yes, because I finally found out that I was worth it. I was worth all the love and appreciation that I was receiving, and I was worth so much more than I could ever have imagined. Remember, everyone's story is different, and everyone has a story, and I promise you that everyone is struggling with something. Be kind, be loving, be aware. One of the best parts of seeking treatment for me was realizing that I was not the only one having these struggles. Similar thoughts, similar issues, similar feelings. Having friends who understood and knew how I felt would help me amazingly. However, it was also one of the worst things because I really hated seeing them hurt like I was. Unfortunately, there is a stigma associated with mental illness. Mr. Dorn, Maria's father and math teacher here at Milton High School, once explained to me, just like a physical illness, mental illness can rob teens of so much. If an athlete has injuries that prevent him or her from competing, we all understand. But when a student has an illness that keeps him or her from being able to perform academically, we just tell them to suck it up and get back in there. We wouldn't do that for a runner with a broken leg. Not only am I not ashamed of my mental illness, but I am proud to be able to share my story and to help others and to help end the stigma. Since this time last year, I've successfully completed my first year of college. I have found my calling as an art teacher. I have gained many friends and started to rebuild some of the loving relationships I had once struggled with. I got my very first puppy. His name is Winston, and he is fabulous. I continue to be on my meds, see counselors, and use coping skills, engage in self-care, and sometimes still need to ask for help. I have realized that I'm stronger than I could have ever imagined, and I am worth the struggle. It is important that you seek help if you need it. This may be through your family, a friend, a teacher, a counselor, your doctor, someone you trust. There is also some wonderful information on the tables outside to help you. Remember, you are worthy, you are loved, and I believe in you. I hope you all have a wonderful time tonight, learning a lot and helping raise money for such an amazing cause. In the words of my mentor, coach, and featured artist, Mr. Tom Leader, PMA all the way, go coach pause, which means positive mental attitude. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to be doing some of the hosting from up above in the booth, in case you're wondering where the voice is coming from, because I have to run the tech as well as do everything else, so I can't be in two places at once. But thanks, Laura. That was really awesome for you to open up like that and share your journey. That takes a lot of courage, and we sure appreciate that you've been able to do. Our next group coming up is a dance by Brianna Tippler and Sarah Nestler Wolf. The accompanyists are all listed in your program. And this is just a dance to the song Tell Your Heart to Beat Again. So we'll have a live musical performance along with the dance.
You're shattered like you've never been before. The life you knew in 1,000 pieces on the floor. And words fall short in times like these, when this world drives you to your knees. You think you're never gonna get washed over you. It's all right now. Love's healing hands have pulled you through. So get back up and take step one. Leave the darkness, feel the sun. 'Cause your story's far from over, and your journey's just begun. Tell your heart to beat again. Close your eyes and breathe it in. Let the shadows fall away. Step into the light of grace. Yesterday's a closing door. You don't live there anymore. Say goodbye to where you've been, and tell your heart to beat again. In this moment, heaven's working for your good. Tell your heart to beat again. Close your eyes and breathe it in. Let the shadows fall away. Step into the light of grace. Yesterday's a closing door. You don't live there anymore. Say goodbye to where you've been, and tell your heart to beat again. Beat again. Beat again. Oh, tell your heart to beat again.
Thank you, that was beautiful. Our next performance is going to be by Karen Severson and Beth Hartley. It'll be a duet with a flute and a viola. The flute being used is an actual alto flute that was donated to Milton High School in Maria's memory by the Milton High School band parents. So it's very special significance. So once again, Karen Severson and Beth Hartley. was beautiful, thank you. I should mention that that is an original piece of music written by Karen's sister Leanne Severson, so thank you for bringing that to us today. Our next performer is a friend of Maria's from high school. Her name is Bailey Schmidt, and she will be doing some poetry reading for us.
So my name is Bailey. I've suffered from multiple different mental illnesses for the majority of my life. I used to think that they defined me. So today I'm sharing an original poem about how I'm trying to define myself right now. I hope that it makes you think about how you would like to define yourself. I want to become a walking bit of poetry. I want to be the girl who rose from the ashes. I want to become inspiration, to change someone's life for the better. I want to show love to people who lost it or those who never had it. I want to be someone's midnight phone call when they have forgotten how to breathe. I want to be important. I want to be remembered. Instead of being lost in the background, I want to embody hope, love, and strength while I try to bring those to people who forgot they existed. I want to provide a needle and thread to people who have been torn apart, or to those who were torn apart, or to those who fell and shattered. I want to become poetry like the words etched in books and inked on skin, but I also want to become poetry in people holding hands or the eyes of someone looking at a loved one, the poetry of a child playing on the sidewalk, and the happy tears rolling down someone's face. I want to become poetry, strength, inspiration, and love.
Thank you, Bailey. That was very beautiful. Our next performer is Gustav Baltus. He's a former Milton High School student who will be performing Redemption Song for us. And while he's coming on the stage, I'd just like to remind people to please take a minute to place your bids in our silent auction. There'll be time to do that now as well as after the performances. Bidding will be closing at 8:15 tonight, so make sure you get your bids on. There are some really beautiful items out there. I wanted to mention that the desk that you see out there, the hand-painted desk, was done by one of our earlier speakers, Laura. She's an amazing artist, both in her speaking skills as well as her painting skills.
Oh, pirates, yes, they robbed I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets? Well, we stand aside and look. Yes, some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption song. atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Yes, some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever have, redemption songs, redemption songs.
Thanks so much, Gus. That was amazing. I had Gus in class, and he was never that vocal in class, so it's nice to hear it. Nice to hear him performing here and seeing him share his talents with us today. Our next performer today is Emily Mello. She's going to be doing a dance to the song "She Used to Be Mine," and so she will be coming up in just a moment. And just another reminder to make sure to get out to the silent auction, the art exhibits if you get a chance, so that you have a chance to take something home with you tonight and help support Project Maria as well. You know, the money raised here helps us do a lot of different things. And one of the projects we're trying to work on is getting together a family support group for the families of those with eating disorders. But in order to do that, we have to find the right therapist to do that and be able to probably pay them some money. So we're hoping to use that to help facilitate that for some families in the area. So, again, our next performance, Emily Mello, and with the song "She Used to Be Mine."
She's imperfect, but she tries. She is good, but she lies. She is hard on herself. She is broken and won't ask for help. She is messy, but she's kind. She is lonely most of the time. She is all of this mixed up.
That was a beautiful dance and a beautiful song, so thank you so much, Emily, for sharing that with us this evening. Our next performance is by a dance group, and they will be performing to the song One Step Away, again accompanied by live performers on piano, vocals, and bass, as well as bongos.
What if you could go back and relive one day of your life all over again and unmake the mistake that left you a million miles away from the you once knew? Now yesterday's shame keeps saying that you'll never get back on track. But what if I told you you're one step away from surrender, one step away from coming home, coming home. One step from arms wide open, His love has never let you go. You're not alone, you're one step away. It doesn't matter how far you've gone, mercy says you don't have to keep running down the road you're on. Love's never met a lost cause. Your shame, lay it down. Leave your ghosts in the past, cause you know that you can't go back, but you can turn around. You're more than one step away from surrender, one step away from coming home. One step from arms wide open, His love has never let you go. You're not alone, you're one step away. Lay down your old chains, come now and take up your new name. Your past life up ahead now. You're one step away. Lay down your old chains. Come now and take up your new name. Your best life up ahead now. You're one step away. Lay down your old chains. Come now and take up your new name. Your best life up ahead now. You're one step away. Come on home, come on home. One step from arms wide open, His love has never let you go. You're not alone, you're one step away. Lay down your old chains. Take up your new name. Lay down your old chains. Take up your new name. Lay down your old chains. Come now and take up your new name. Your best life up ahead now. You're one step away. Lay down your old chains. Come now and take up your new name. Your best life up ahead now. You're one step away.
Thanks so much again for that beautiful dance performance, and special thanks to the people at Dance Attitudes who went on some rehearsal space for this to prepare tonight. Our final performer this evening is a really performer. She's just going to be sharing with us her story and her perspective. Her name is Paula Ponder. She's mother of a daughter in recovery from anorexia, and is here to share with us today a mother's perspective on anorexia. So.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. It's been many decades since I've been on a high school stage, and hopefully I won't break into some song from Fiddler on the Roof. But that is always a risk. So thank you, Mike and Lita, for having me. I actually came to the Art Jam last year, and I think there were about 12 people milling around in the outer area. So I was kind of expecting to be in a corner of a room speaking to 6 people, so you'll have to excuse me while I adjust. Last night, I was out for dinner. We were out with some friends, and we were talking about certain kinds of movies that have different meanings when you see them the second time around. They have a plot twist that you don't expect. So the first time you see it, you're surprised. And then the second time you see it, it's a completely different experience. Movies like The Sixth Sense, that the second time around you watch it and you pick up on all the clues that you missed the first time around. Or American Beauty, another one that had a plot twist at the end. A different experience when you watch it for a second time. Life can be like that sometimes. In hindsight, the clues were there, but I missed them at the time. Spring 2013, my daughter decided to become a vegetarian. Should have been a red flag, but it wasn't. I was busy getting my appendix taken out. My mother had Alzheimer's. My grandbaby twins were just born, and I was distracted. I didn't notice the clues, but in hindsight, they were all around me. But when she was finally diagnosed, actually just a few months later with severe anorexia, I was completely gobsmacked, even though the evidence had been right in front of me all along. We embarked on a journey, a terrifying journey, of meal plans, therapies, hospitalizations, and total shock. It was like an immersion program in eating disorders. I knew nothing. But I immersed myself in the literature, I read voraciously, I participated in family therapy, and went with my daughter to many, many appointments. She was at a couple facilities at Rogers, and she declined throughout the summer till we had her admitted to Children's Hospital in Minneapolis on an emergency basis. We didn't know if she was going to make it. She was there for 4 weeks. She was doing better by the end of the 4 weeks and was released to my care, where we underwent family-based therapy, which meant she and I were together 24/7. It was just like having a newborn. I cooked, I shopped, I cleaned up, and I sat and I had many meals with her. Many meals that started with her staring at the plate with tears rolling down her eyes. The easy thing to do would be to throw that food away because it was so painful. I know the first speaker said it was like eating a plate of snakes if you're afraid of snakes. And that is exactly what it was like. But I loved her too much to give in to her anorexia. I had to be a brick wall against her tears, against her cries, against the pain that was very, very real. It wasn't all drudgery. We spent many long hours reading books aloud to each other, doing puzzles, our great distraction, and playing cards. There was a memorable day when she looked down her lap and looked up and said, "I have cleavage." That was almost as fun as the day I was on a conference call at work and she came in and announced she got her menses. So that was a high point as well. My customers in New York were glad to hear it. That spring, obviously I had taken a lot of time off work, but I was able, my employer was fairly accommodating. But that spring, she was doing well enough and she had returned to school, at least part-time, and we decided to take a chance and go to Hawaii for spring break. So the first day, we get there, and my daughter, who's been quite ill, puts on a swimsuit, sits on a blanket, and grabs a bag of chips. And I looked at her, "Where the hell have you been?" It was amazing. It was as if she left her anorexia shivering in the cold in Wisconsin. Unfortunately, it was waiting for her when we got back. Her recovery has continued, but it hasn't been linear. Many of you that have experienced mental illness in your life or mental illness of the life of a loved one, you know that recovery is not linear. There's not one moment you're sick and one moment that you are better. Although her life-threatening crisis had in fact abated, her journey continues. I often refer to my daughter in my blog as Guzzy. When my mother was struggling with Alzheimer's, she couldn't remember people's names, and that's what she called her once, and it kind of stuck. It kind of fit her. So even as Guzzy improved and kind of rejoined her own life, I was a little bit shell-shocked and traumatized from the whole experience, and I wanted to be active in eating disorder advocacy. Yet, I came up with 100 rationalizations as to why I shouldn't get involved. I'm too busy. I'm just a mom. What do I know? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. What if I made people uncomfortable? We've talked about the stigma of mental illness. What if people didn't want to hear about things of body image and eating disorders? And honestly, at the bottom of it all, what would people think of me, that my daughter had a life-threatening mental illness? So I was stuck in waffle mode. And somewhere towards the end of my waffling, I read Amy Poehler's book, Yes, Please. And when she was asked how she manages her hectic schedule, her reply went to the heart of my personal dilemma. You do it because the doing is the thing. The talking, the worrying, and the thinking is not the thing. The doing is the thing. So that was a little nudge I needed to get involved with NEDA, National Eating Disorder Association. I had learned that NEDA provides advocacy and direct support to individuals and families suffering from eating disorders. I went to their conference and met many of their staff members and learned more about their programming. I talked to parents. I talked to parents who, like Michael and Lita, who had lost their children to eating disorders. I talked to parents who were struggling to find affordable, accessible treatment. I talked to parents who were angry and confused. They didn't understand what was happening. Why was their child self-destructing before their very eyes? It's a special kind of pain to watch that happen to a loved one. We commiserated, we shared stories, we shared treatment ideas, and we shared tears. It is not enough, but it is something. So what can I do? I was still in this place. I'm a mom. I'm a project manager. I plan and I organize stuff. Oh, I plan and I organize stuff. I can organize a NEDA walk. So this year will be our 3rd annual NEDA walk in Madison. I hope to see many of you there. Over the past 2 years, we've had over 500 walkers in total over the 2 years. We have raised over $40,000 in the fight against eating disorders. Maria was at that first NEDA walk, and I truly hope and pray she found some temporary respite and comfort in the community's coming together in support and love for her and others who suffer. In closing, I want to share with you a couple things I heard from a young woman in talking to her mother in retrospect for her recovery. She said, "Thank you for loving me enough to let me hate you when I was sick. And thank you for fighting for my recovery when I was too sick to fight for my own." So I hope through these NEDA walks we can help even one individual and one family not go through the pain and anguish of a severe eating disorder. Thank you so much.
All right, that concludes the performance portion of the Project Maria Art Jam this year, but there's still a lot of stuff going on out in the cafeteria. Let's face it, it's raining way too hard outside for you to want to go to your car. So we've got still some food out there, we've got lots of art projects that are waiting to be bid upon, and I'll probably put on a little music in here as well too once I get off the stage. So you're welcome to hang out in here and talk as well, but please enjoy the rest of the evening. Remember that the auctions do end at 8:15, and all proceeds are going towards Project Maria this year, and things that we'd like to fund and things we'd like to do to help people with eating disorders and their families move towards recovery. So thank you again for attending this evening, and we'll see you out in the art area. Thanks.